Since we are speaking about the India strategy, India's AI strategy, and India's place on the global map, and we are talking, we're going to talk a little bit about the AI ecosystem. I just wanted to set the context for this, basically because AI is such an interesting subject, and as we were just having our own round table before coming in here, and we were just wondering the buzzword of today. Can anybody tell me which is the buzzword of today? Come on.
ChatGPT.
Exactly. So we are all, used to this kind of chatter around the buzz around ChatGPT, which has taken AI to the mainstream, to the masses. And I think Jensen Huang, who is the CEO of NVIDIA, just recently said that ChatGPT shows that AI has reached an inflection point. Now, if you go to, if you retrace your steps a bit, we'll all realize that AI is actually a 60-year-old technology. Machine learning has been, people have been speaking about machine learning for the last 40 years. Yet, it is just today, just for the last 3 or 4 years, that we have actually been talking about AI, because it has sort of, when Mark Anderson said that, okay, software is going to eat the world, here we are going to say now that AI is going to eat software, and Shrikant loves to use that AI is going to eat software, and he's going to tell us more about it later in a bit. Now, the interesting part is that when we talk about ChatGPT, when we talk about Lambda, when we talk about Bing, Bard, and all these kind of new kind of technical jargon, at the end of the day, it is all about the desire of human beings to make machines as intelligent or perhaps more intelligent than themselves. And this is not my definition, this is the definition of one of the founders of artificial intelligence, Marvin Minsky. And I think that was the most perfect definition that I have heard so far. And then, of course, then you have machine learning, deep learning, computer vision, image recognition, and now the whole generative AI which has taken the world by storm. And that is why we all are tremendously interested in understanding these terms. But more than that is, can we really have AI without an AI ecosystem? Like we have the IITs, we have the NITs, we have bodies like industry bodies like NASScom out here. We have the entire government support. Just the other day, PM Modi said that AI should be in all the sectors. Give me 10 ideas where I can use AI in areas like education, farming, and agriculture, in other sectors. And it's not that it's not being used up till now. Of course, there's a lot of, like weather forecasting has been done by AI. We are using it in retail very heavily. AI is being used in the BFSI sector very heavily, banking, and all your chatbots were there earlier, now they're becoming AI-powered chatbots. So the entire ecosystem, including your digital payments, etc., and the push by Niti Aayog, the 2018 paper that most of you here out will be very aware of that particular paper. If not, please read that paper. It has laid out a whole roadmap on AI. But having said that, along with the positives of AI, the amount of interest that AI has generated with generative AI and other things that are happening, there's also the kind of expectations, people are a little cautious, people are a little apprehensive about AI. One is, will it take away my jobs? I was just doing a session on ChatGPT the other day for some media house. And our first question was, will ChatGPT take away my job? I said, but just 3 years back you asked me the same job, will AI take away my job? So these things are bound to happen. That apprehension is going to be there. Will AI become sentient is another thing. Okay, and then of course we are going to have a lot more discussions about the policy frameworks around AI. Biases, like you saw the way the Microsoft's Tay chatbot acted errant at one point in time. Of course you had Bing and Bard now who are also playing games now. So it's a very interesting kind of landscape. In all this, what are the take-homes? So we are going to divide this discussion into a simple 3 parts: opportunities, challenges, and the way forward. I'll start without much ado. Beena, let me start with you. Given the kind of global exposure that you have, we all have global exposure, so that's not right. But I mean, you are Deloitte global leader, so you have seen kind of both the ecosystems. Now there are different narratives out here. If you look at certain studies, AI is among the top, India is among the top 10 countries as far as AI is concerned. Some say it's in the top 30s, some say in the top 50s, depending on the kind of parameters that you look. Could you give us a perspective of what India, a country like India, is doing right when you compare them with other global ecosystems?
Thanks, Leslie. And I'll just answer one question that you had raised earlier. Will ChatGPT or AI take away my job? And my answer is always probably not. But the person who can use it effectively is going to take away your job. Right? It's true for everything that we do. And the similar thing that we see is companies that use AI versus the ones that don't use AI. It's the ones that don't use AI or the newer technologies are the ones who are going to be disrupted, and it doesn't matter which part of the world you're in. It's very, very similar. In terms of the ecosystem, obviously a lot of activity happening in the US, in the EU, but India is doing some amazing work. And what we see the differentiator really coming from India is solving those problems at a diverse level, which can only be done in a country like India. And also the focus on responsible AI. That is coming from very much from a top-down approach where it's thinking about trust and responsible AI upfront as you begin your AI journey is something that's unique to India compared to the rest of the world.
But Shrikant, when you speak to your clients, obviously every company today across sectors, I think most sectors, I don't think there's any sector that has not implemented AI in some form or the other. I mean, some do plain statistics, that's the unfortunate part of it. But I was just looking at some statistics. In the last 8 quarters, global companies that have declared their earnings in the last 8 quarters, all of them have made a reference to AI. And that also includes some of the Indian companies. These are behemoths, basically. So we are living in very interesting times. But from the ecosystem point of view, what are your clients asking? What are your clients telling you? Are they finding the ecosystem realistic? You were talking about the research papers, etc. You can shed some light on that.
Sure. I mean, first of all, Leslie, I think you did such a thorough introduction to this topic that I feel like I probably can't add much value beyond what you already said.
I don't believe
But yeah, so as far as I'll give you both the global perspective that you asked for in terms of clients as well as the India research perspective that you just mentioned. So look, India, I think, is in a good place in general. 1 in 5 AI researchers is an Indian person. Number 2, we already have the 3rd largest number of publications in AI for any country in the world. So US and China are at 150,000 papers a year. India is at 50,000 papers a year. So it's much less than the first 2, but it's number 3. So that's something very interesting. Even without that much of a focus on AI, we have already cracked the talent part. Thanks to the very rigorous math education, especially in some of the best schools in India have, we have produced sufficient number of highly intelligent, highly capable AI researchers that are already changing the world in many ways, not just in India, but across the world. So we have something really good going on as far as India is concerned. And there are a number of things we have to work on in terms of the ecosystem, etc. What is working in our ecosystem is the sheer audacity and the ambition of the entrepreneurs that I have met recently. It's unmatched compared to when I started Fractal as an entrepreneur. Frankly, I wish I could have dreamt the way these guys are dreaming right now. They're amazing. And that, I think, is always a starting point for some fascinating changes that will come. Yes, they will not succeed. Not all of them will succeed. But that's okay. 1 in 10 succeeds, India will change. So we have some very good stuff going on in terms of the audacity of the entrepreneurs, the size of the problems they're solving, the kinds of problems they're solving. They're solving uniquely India problems. So lots of good things going on. And coming to your question on what are global companies, what they say, yes, all of them are declared AI, but I think this trend actually started in 2015. 2010 was the first time when people thought AI is something new compared to what they had imagined, good old-fashioned AI. Something new started coming in 2010. But by 2015, the Fortune 500 companies had started to invest heavily in AI, and you started seeing them talking to their board, making presentations to the board. That has changed significantly in 2020 when not just the Fortune 500 companies, but everyone, including Indian companies, small, medium, large. I have done at least half a dozen presentations to Indian SME companies in the last 3-4 months because I've been invited to come and talk about AI because they feel like their business is either getting disrupted, or they feel it's the biggest opportunity. Often it's both. So that we have seen is recently every company on the planet thinks that AI is either going to disrupt my business or it will be the biggest opportunity that I should not let go of. And that is a big change that I'm seeing right now compared to a few years ago.
Yeah, Srinath, thanks. I think you brought up a very important point out here, is that the entrepreneurs are also driving this revolution. A lot of deep tech startups are out here. I think something more than 1,000. I think it's clearly more than 1,000 just deep tech, two deep tech startups. So that's a very interesting thing that's happening. And they're not only just in AI, I mean they're all in related fields, AI plus IoT, AI plus quantum, AI plus, so all the allied kind of fields. That's a very interesting thing. Biswajeet, your thoughts on this, because I do remember that just before we came up, we were just discussing whether AI. Now, when we're talking about the AI system, one thing is to be patriotic about a country like India and feel good about a country like India. But at the same time, I am not too sure whether the kind of quality of papers, match up to say the kind of original kind of papers that come up from there, which are true AI kind of stuff that happens. So, given the kind of, and we don't have too much of AI original R&D. Probably as a country we are very good in application, and that's probably a strength that we should play upon. What are your thoughts on this from an ecosystem perspective?
Thank you, Leslie. So you're absolutely right. There's a lot of good work which is happening in AI in India, but if you look at it, it's a lot of implementation of AI which is happening, right? A lot of the original product development or the original creation of the AI tools, that's still being done in the US, right? And if you look at Forrester data, $60 billion was spent last year, 2022, in AI and AI products. But the caveat there is 2/3 of that was spent in only two countries, it was US and China, right? And then you have other countries like Israel and Singapore and South Korea investing a lot. So we are good in adoption, which is great. So we pick up technology very fast, as you were saying, that we are good in mathematics, so we learn applications, we start implementing a lot, but there's a lot of innovation which needs to be done. And companies like Fractal are doing a great job in doing that, but we still have a lot of room to cover and a lot of work to be done. Now, there are different indexes. You said we are in top 10 or top 3, but there are indexes where, to be honest, we are like number 32, right? And again, the top 3 are US, Singapore, and China. And basically, if you look at it, why is it that? There are 3 or 4 aspects which decide that. For example, one is the government aspect. Now we do have a great government which has all these new policies of National Data Governance Framework. We have the Make AI Work for India. We have the Center of Excellences which have been built. And those are good initiatives. The second aspect is technology. Now there I said there are 2 components. One is the adopters, the other one is the creators. We are great adopters, but the creation part needs a lot more work to be done. And the third thing, what we all forget about, the core is data. Right? It's still data, right? If your data is not good, your AI will fail. Now, for example, somebody yesterday was saying that, okay, I am using ChatGPT to do my stock investments. I'm like, do you know ChatGPT has data till 2021? It did not factor in all the other issues we have now, right? So it doesn't work, right? So the thing is, we have major problem with data gathering, data preservation, data augmentation, data analytics. All of that needs to be taken care of, and on top of it, we still do not have data privacy law, right? So those are the challenges. I'm sure people are working on it, but there is definitely work to be done.
I think I was going to come to the challenges, but you have already touched upon that. But the interesting part is, I think when Bard made a mistake, that's Google's search engine powered chatbot, when it made a mistake, Google lost $100 billion in a single day. And when Jensen Huang made a statement saying that ChatGPT has made AI reach the inflection point, he made $75 million a day. So the choice is yours. I think it's good to back AI. But yes, I think we brought up an interesting point here that I guess we need not be really perturbed about the fact that whether AI, whether we're good in AI applications or whether we're good in AI R&D. Perhaps, probably this is our strength. Beena, from a challenges point of view, one, if you can touch upon this, that whether this can be a real strength, and what are the kind of gaps that can be addressed in the ecosystem. One, of course, could be more of the as we were discussing earlier, taking a lead in AI and developing very robust kind of frameworks, policy frameworks around AI, in reducing the biases, etc. Some other challenges that you could speak about?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges which hasn't been solved by any country is really around the challenge around AI ethics or responsible AI, trust AI. And part of it is just because the conversation has been very much at the headline level. Now, as regulations are being built, you are seeing it come down to that use case level. Really, to solve for ethics or responsible AI, you have to look for it in the context of the domain and the use case. It's not a one-size-fits-all. And in my role working with governments across the globe, I definitely see regulations on the radar. And again, those regulations have to be at the use case level. The opportunity for India, since we are still early in the stage, is to take leadership in this, in solving for this. The diversity of use cases that we're looking at, Shrikant mentioned about, we are looking at, very audacious dreams. Can we make, building it in a responsible, ethical way, part of those audacious dreams? Can we be the first ones to actually solve for this challenge that has existed ever since, AI use cases came into the enterprises and started scaling out, whether it's bias, transparency, reliability, and robustness of the algorithms. There are so many different aspects to it, but I think if anybody can solve it, it's this group of dreamers that can do it.
How many of you in the audience would truly tell me that you'll understand what the word LLM means? I see one hand go. Okay, I'll expand it. Large language models, because you're speaking about ChatGPT. Okay, fair enough. Shrikant, from a challenges point of view, when we are talking about the challenges around just specifically generative AI, we typically talk about this whole context of LLMs, then we are talking about AI-powered chatbots, then we are talking about, linking them with search engines. Can you give us a 2-minute timer?
Sure. So, large language models are underlying the excitement that in AI recently. So large language models are a class of deep learning techniques. And what is deep learning? Deep learning is just one kind of machine learning. And all of this is in the umbrella term called AI. So AI is a very broad, all-encompassing term. If your pasta recipe, a machine can make a better pasta because of a recipe, that's also AI in my book. So it's a very broad definition, matching and exceeding human performance. Within that comes machine learning, which is, can machines learn automatically from data rather than me telling them what to do? Can they learn on their own? That's machine learning. Within that, deep learning is a set of an architecture which is around, you have all these sort of weights and lots of network, and it sort of there's a specific class of machine learning problems with very deep network. That is called deep learning. Now, don't have to worry about machine learning to deep learning translation. I'm not specifically not answering it in too much detail. Now within that comes the large language model where the excitement is happening. What are large language models? Large language models are, and all of this was started off by a paper written in 2017 called Attention is All You Need. By the way, co-authored by 2 Indian authors. Right? To tell you, yeah, you can say India is not producing original stuff, but these are 2 Indian people who produce them, educated in India, now live in the US, right? So that 2 Google researchers are part of the co-authors of the Attention is All You Need paper, which unleashed all this. Now, what is the attention mechanism? What is the large language model? It's a very simple thing, actually. It's brainlessly simple if you think about it. It is like, if you give a series of string of words, it is predicting the next word. So if you say, I am happy, then the next word may be that. Or it keeps predicting the next word, and eventually writes a whole story, it can write a whole paragraph, it keeps predicting the next word. Now what it does is it goes through the entire language and everything that's been written, ever written in the history of the world, it has access to that. By that it knows what is most likely to come after a set of words in a certain context. If the last one paragraph is this much, and I've read all of that, what should be the next word? It predicts that. And by just doing this, it turns out that it is incredibly smart. Nobody knew that it would be this smart, that it can answer so interesting questions, write up its own original sort of poems and essays and books and so on that are coming out right now. And even write code. So you can use ChatGPT to write computer code. It turns out that by reading all the code in the world and all the text in the world, it is actually very good at writing, producing code. So you, like I keep saying, the hottest programming language in 2022 was JavaScript and Python. The hottest programming language in 2023 is English. And all you have to do is to think in English. ChatGPT or GitHub Copilot will produce the code. Right? So what's happening is that these language models, by just taking a series of words and then predicting the next word and then the next word, are producing the magic. That's what's happening. Why should it have worked? I don't know, but it does work.
I think now you got your 2-minute primer, it exceeded the 2-minute primer. But I get you all got the gist and you know whom to catch after this session. Of course,
it was not too confusing.
The audience should tell you.
Did you get it, or was that?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
And of course, there are some more interesting parts to that also on in-context learning, where there are machine learning models within the machine learning models. So I can confuse you further also if you can come to me after that. But from a challenges point of view, I think Biswajeet, let's speak a little bit. Many people ask, will AI take away my job? Will ChatGPT take away my job? As Beena pointed, it's not ChatGPT necessarily, but the person who's sort of skilled at using those prompts better with the kind of domain expertise. Can you give us a perspective on what exactly the kind of skill sets that the generation has to take? Because the challenges are many with AI around. Can you give us a sense of what people need to do today to keep pace with these kind of massive changes that are happening?
Yeah, so there are two aspects to it again. One is from an enterprise point of view or the government point of view, what needs to be done. The second thing is from an individual point of view, what needs to be done. So if you look at individuals, we are doing great in terms of climbing slowly the ladder of the languages and technologies and understanding it. If you look at earlier we had data engineers, then we got data scientists, and now we have like AI, ML engineers, whatever you call them, right? Now the thing there is, it's not about just understanding a technology or using a tool, but it is about understanding the logics behind it and building those different models. And that requires a little bit more of understanding of two things. One is the business problem you're trying to solve, and the second thing is how you're applying your applied mathematics in solving it, right? And it's good that countries like India, and we are very good in mathematics historically, so we will have a young population which is going to easily adapt it and learn. From an enterprise's point of view, I think the most important thing which we need to look at is what is the business problem they're trying to solve, and what kind of skill sets would be required to solve the problem. What is generally happening is, okay, this skill set is in demand, so I'll get the skill set first. And then I'll try to see what is the business problem which it can solve, right?
Basically putting the cart
before the horse, right? So I think those are the issues which you need to handle both at an individual level as well as enterprise and organization.
Yep.
Can I just add something to what Shrikant said, right? Of English being the most important language right now, and that's the opportunity India has. Just in this room, I don't know how many of us are here, 100 of us, but between the 100 of us, I'm sure we cover at least 200 languages at the minimum. Right? So at the minimum, I'm pretty sure if you grew up in a different state, it adds up to like
not speaking about the dialects.
Yeah. So and that's the challenge right now. All that you see with generative AI is English, and that's going to leave entire populations behind. And that's the opportunity that we need to grab on to make it more robust, more inclusive, more equitable, right?
I'm glad you brought up that point of English, because then what about from a challenges and an AI ecosystem point of view, what about vernacular languages? So that also seems to be an extremely important point of view. Because whenever we speak about ChatGPT, we are speaking about English. But there's a whole scope out here, so any one of you, whoever wants to throw that.
Frankly, I think it's not a big deal. It will happen very, very quickly. Because the set of technologies that are coming out right now are very flexible. fact, the whole natural language processing field was originated because the first data set to use was the Canadian Parliament. Because Canada is a bilingual country, all records are kept in both French and English. So what they did was they basically trained, okay, this is English and that word, that is French. And all the language models were initially developed like that. India has a lot of rich language tradition. And it will be very, already all these translates, etc., Google Translate, other systems are already very good at understanding.
We also have Ashni, that we have
yes.
ISC
and as practically we are working with the government and Google, right? Voice enabled as well as natural language enabled in multiple Indian languages. I think it's a huge opportunity, but it's not a challenge in the sense that we have such rich literary tradition in India and across so many languages. If you go to any part of the India and ask them which is the most literally evolved part of India, that will be the part, right? Because they believe that there's already so much. So if we can extract all this knowledge and bring it to the world, I think we have a big contribution ahead of us to the world. But I don't think it's such a hard problem. It's actually a huge opportunity.
Lovely. I'm glad we see it as an opportunity because we will see the amount of NLP players out from India. I'd like to take a couple of questions from the audience before I'm sure you have a lot of questions. You're free to use ChatGPT. Yes, please. Kindly identify yourself. And if there's any specific person you want to ask the question to, address.
I'm worried about identifying myself because the question might sound so stupid that I don't want my
organization to sound so stupid question.
No, I want to ask a question. What I've been quite intrigued is if you ask ChatGPT a question, will it give you the same answer? Like I say, write an essay on cow. Will it give the same answer to everyone? And if it is going to give the same answer to everyone, then people are saying you can cheat using ChatGPT, it will be very easy to find, it only has one answer. So that's what, because I have not managed to log into it, but I have been intrigued by it.
I can answer that question. Look, first of all, it will not give you the same answer again and again. Because these models are still not that stable. They are very reliant on the context. Depending on what has transpired before in that session, you will get a very different answer. So they take all the conversation history in giving you the next answer. And it's not as if the same question, it's also a debatable question, whether the question slightly worded differently will give you a completely different answer. So this is still an area of research as to how to make these models more stable and how to make it creative. In fact, the way it is being trained also is that they sample this for the same question, get 4 different answers, and then human rankers are actually ranking which is the better answer. They say A, B, C, D in terms of the 4 answers. That is one of the training mechanisms of ChatGPT itself. So yes, it doesn't give you the exact same answer to the exact same question with some exceptions. So these bots also have the problem of what is called an hallucination. After some time, they get lost and they start doing all kinds of things. And in some ways, they have some human weaknesses now, which machines earlier didn't have human weaknesses, but some of these AI programs actually start to have some human weaknesses. They get bored, they get tired, they start misbehaving like us human beings.
We're getting all that. So this is the very interesting part because the founder of AI, one of the founders of AI, Marvin Minsky, did say this, that somebody had asked him the same question, are you worried what happens if AI becomes sentient? Which simply means that it starts thinking like a human being and become more powerful. He said, I'm not worried about it because it will make the same mistakes that human beings are doing. So it's okay, we are actually seeing the beginnings of that. And a very interesting point, just taking on what Srikanth said, is that we have to have patience with these kind of tools, because I think yesterday Jensen Huang made a very interesting statement during his earnings call. And this person, Jensen knows what he's talking about. He says that in the next 10 years, we'll see AI models, some of the AI models becoming 10 million times more powerful than ChatGPT. So, coming from a person like Jensen, yes, we know that there's a lot in the offing, a lot more is going to happen, and a lot of things will evolve. One more question, I can. Yes, please. Please, Sam.
Hi everyone, Rakesh this side from Suryakar. Basically my question is, hearing all that about ChatGPT and AI, and it is covering lots of dimensions and the capability. But my basic question is, whenever we are getting these, actionable item for someone, how do we establish, trust, transparency, and auditability, so that somebody can, revisit, or if there's any governance alignment is required, these instruments should be helping, those who are implementing it. So, what are the, possibility in these areas?
So this is like the evolutionary times for any technology, right? So initially it starts in such a way that you are trying to work out and you are doing experiments with it, and if you are doing, then you start actually implementing them. And then when it comes mainstream, that's when the regulators and the government that starts looking into it and building policies. Now if you look at, for example, 2010, same thing happened with cloud. People were just playing around with cloud, but now you have strict regulations by the different authorities and what can go on cloud, what cannot go on cloud, right? So similarly, even in AI, I was yesterday talking to a group of CIOs from banks, and they were talking to me and saying that even RBI is looking at, for example, if a bank wants to integrate something like ChatGPT into the chatbot, and you are saying that you are also disclosing the transactions. Now, how do you define whether it's my transaction or it is my account which has been worked upon and information is given to me, right? So for that, even RBI and others are working on the regulations, how these kind of technologies can be used from a banking point of view. Similarly, other industries will also get working on it. So this is an evolutionary process which happens with all the technologies, and once it starts getting mainstream, we'll definitely see regulations and governance mechanisms coming in.
Oh, I was just going to say it depends on the use case. Like what you're seeing today with generative AI is just a B2C model. It's open to everybody. But when companies start adopting it and rolling it out as part of their core products or engaging with customers, you're going to see more governance and guardrails put around it, those risks addressed. And again, it will be at the use case level depending on what you're using it for.
And I 30 seconds to that. See, it's right now a toy. It's not a tool yet. It's still a toy. And it also comes with all its warnings, very clearly. There is a whole responsible AI framework that has to be applied there in terms of what data it is using, what is the accuracy of what it provides. That's still not there. I think what it has done is a demonstration of the power of AI, nothing more than that as of right now.
Yeah, I guess these are the kind of take home that this is a toy, not a tool. It has to evolve into a tool. Let's not miss the wood for the trees. Please remember that generative AI and ChatGPT are one small subsection of the entire AI, and a lot is happening in the AI ecosystem. A lot AI for social good. AI is being used in weather forecasting and education, in agriculture, helping the lives of farmers, helping the lives of so many things. And I mean, the entire world is being transformed by AI. It has got its clear limitations. Let's not, make it a god. At no given point in time is becoming sentient, at least in a hurry. Let's not put too many expectations. Otherwise, in short, an AI winter, we'll have another, ChatGPT winter. Let's not have it. And you folks have been an amazing interactive audience. Thank you very much. And please give all the panelists a big hand.
For more interesting content, like, comment and subscribe to our NASSCOM YouTube channel.